Welcome to the very first Acorn Land Lab course. My name is Kimball Hildreth with Acorn Land Labs. You've probably seen a little bit of me on YouTube if you followed our channel. I'm sure you've seen a lot of my brother Joe. Joe shows off all of the circular systems, all of the food systems, garden systems, energy systems, etc. Our team is made up of a few folks with various skill sets. We've got Ben behind the camera. Hey Ben! We've got Joe. He's off editing video right now. I'm basically our architect, designing the way the systems connect together and then working to pull together the software for the off-grid simulator. We want to go on a deep dive to share everything that we've learned and have been learning about building off-grid systems, whether you're interested in sustainability, affordability, independence, or just learning something new and working on more projects outdoors. For us, we're interested in all of those elements. It was back in my late teens, early 20s that I first heard about tiny homes. That's what started the journey for me, wanting to learn more about doing projects on my own to take care of my basic needs, whether it was shelter, energy, food, water, sanitation, transportation. It's a fascinating puzzle to solve. We're going to be diving into all the systems that you've seen in our social media shorts. We'll be talking about the issues around zoning, financing off-grid systems, the realities of how well they can perform in day-to-day function. Beyond that, we're really just going to be keeping this pretty casual, as if you and I were just sitting down together talking about your plans to build your future off-grid dream. Off-grid is not easy. It's not a silver bullet to make life all better, but we think it's incredibly worthwhile. There's a reason our team is building these off-grid systems. There's a reason that we're passionate about it, and there's a reason we want to share more of it with you. But we split the course up into primary sections where we've got our energy section, our food section, our water section, sanitation, shelter, transportation. Then we talk about financing, zoning, and then we'll dive into where, the future, can take all these concepts when you bring them all together. I've got my handy dandy notepad and pen with me. I truly don't go anywhere without them, just to make sure I hit all the points as we go through these videos. These are our beautiful props. All of this was grown in our garden, the Acorn Land Lab that you've seen in video. We've got sun gold tomatoes, we've got purple whole beans, cucumbers, heritage tomatoes. This is why we do it, because we want to grow better food, produce more affordable, interesting shelter. We want to eat better, have more time. We want to be in more control of our day-to-day. That's why we love these systems, and we're trying to share this with you, because it is incredibly satisfying to grow food, to capture sunlight for energy, to harness rainwater, to build your own tiny shelter. There's so many amazing benefits to reconnecting with the basic things you need, and when you bring them all together, you can have far more time doing things you love outdoors, time working with family and friends, projects that are restoring health to our natural world, building soil, increasing biodiversity. Not everyone's going to move away to the boondocks and build an off-grid cabin from scratch. That's not realistic for all of us. So we want to show you examples, no matter where you are, how you can start building these sustainable off-grid systems. So whether you want to build a tiny house in a city on a lot, or you want to take your suburban home and retrofit it with rainwater collection, solar panels, composting toilets, you name it. Or if you want to go out to the boondocks and build a tiny cabin that's totally off-grid in a remote setting. We're trying to illustrate how all three of those options work. Our goal is to give you the concepts and the tools to where you can go and live this lifestyle way faster than we did. Because the tools are there, the educational components are there, the community is there online. You just need to take your first step. And by being in this community, you obviously have done that. Enjoy the course, but also hop into our other post channels and chat channels. Start building relationships with other people that are doing this where you live, or people on the other side of the country, because that's how you move faster, getting encouragement from other people that are on the same journey. What home will you build? What off-grid system will you create? We're excited to find out. Share your progress as you go, and let us know if you have questions throughout the course. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Welcome to lesson 2 of the Acorn Land Lab course. Today we're going to be diving into a concept you're going to see through the entire course. Centralized systems versus decentralized systems. This is a really critical pattern to recognize, because it'll help you to automatically see systems that either fit into the Acorn Land Lab, Acorn Home picture for off-grid living, or patterns that don't fit in at all and are part of the more traditional centralized format. What is a decentralized system? Why do they matter? Why does our team here at Acorn Land Labs care about decentralized systems? One of the best examples I can give you of a decentralized system is our garden right across the street in the Acorn Land Lab. So our garden there, growing the tomatoes, cucumbers, beans, and many other things from watermelons to okra and squash, eggplant, that garden is decentralized in every sense of the word. We save seeds year after year so that we don't always have to buy new seeds. So we're not ordering seeds from hundreds or thousands of miles away after we save them. We're using rainwater that falls on the tiny house and collects in the big IBC totes. It's water that's sourced here locally. We're working the garden locally. We're not reliant on migrant labor from thousands of miles away where there might be issues with ethics, issues with how folks are treated. Our labor, our water, our land, we're using seeds that we've saved. We're picking food right where we eat it. We're harvesting the food where it gets consumed. And we share it with friends and family in our community. If I was to go to Publix, there's a pretty good chance, or any other grocery store, I don't mean to pick on Publix, any other grocery store, Kroger, Publix, Costco, I would be able to find produce there from California, lettuce, tomatoes. I could find blueberries from Argentina. I could find produce from thousands of miles away. That is really not decentralized. That produce is being shipped to massive central hubs in the States, and then shipped to distribution centers, and then shipped to us, the end consumer. So we're nowhere near where that produce is being produced. No pun intended. So the garden is decentralized. A centralized farm, think of a giant industrial soybean farm in the Midwest. We're relying on fossil fuels from a mix from the US or fossil fuels from South America, the Middle East. We need those energy inputs, and they're massive to run all the huge machinery. We need the fertilizers that come from various sources and often require massive amounts of energy as well to produce the NPK fertilizers. We are reliant upon giant corporations to make the huge harvest machines. We then ship that soy all over the world. It could be to China to fatten up hogs. It could be to North Carolina to feed chickens and broiler homes, hogs here as well. That is hyper centralized. Those farms rely on the commodity markets. They rely on giant corporations. They use as few people as possible. They rely on lots of chemicals, lots of energy inputs. That's a very fragile system. We saw just how fragile those systems are during COVID with supply chain issues. Our garden does not rely upon fertilizers from overseas. It does not rely upon energy inputs that are massive from overseas. Our garden uses compost. It uses liquid fertilizer. Our garden uses local labor. Our garden takes rainwater. That is such a decentralized system as opposed to a mega soybean farm in the Midwest that needs inputs from thousands of miles away to function and operate. So that's the difference between centralized, decentralized. So to give you some other rapid fire examples of decentralized versus centralized, the solar panels in the Acorn Land Lab, decentralized. The massive coal plant 30 miles from here, centralized. Big K-12 public schools, centralized. Independent homeschool pod, decentralized. Small businesses, our small business, very decentralized, very independent. Large business like UPS or Home Depot, centralized. Now, I'm not trying to say all centralized bad, all decentralized good. That's not the case. There are so many benefits and efficiency centralized systems give us. But right now, historically, globally, we rely on so many almost exclusively centralized systems. We need a balance. Right now, centralized is almost all we have. We're decentralized systems. We need to come down into centralized systems, bring up decentralized systems, and have a balance of both. I'm not saying that highly centralized education systems are all bad. I'm not saying massive corporations are all bad. We need some big farms, and we're going to need some big schools, and we're going to need some big companies. But we need to boost the number of small decentralized options across the economy and across the globe. So here at the Acorn Land Lab, a few of the example decentralized systems that we rely on, housing. We built our small tiny house ourselves. We tried to use as many local materials as possible. Cypress wood from down in South Georgia, tin roofing from another small business, lumber from small businesses, windows and doors from a reclamation center. Centralized housing is built by about 4 mega housing companies here in the US. If you Google big 4 housing companies in the US, you'll find them online. They build housing as fast and as cheap as they possibly can. It's not built for efficiency. It's not built for affordability. It's not even built for real human enjoyment because you have to have a car in these communities. The zoning regs, they lead us to building all this cracker box housing that's just, it's really garbage. It'll start falling apart after 30 years. So a lot of the new housing you see going up right now, in 30 to 40 years, it is all going to start falling apart. We have friends in new builds, and the new builds start falling apart the day they moved in. We think there's something to be said for getting more involved in how your home is built. So our house, the tiny house, is very decentralized in the way it was produced. We designed it, we found the materials, we put it together. The little micro cabin we'll be building for Off-Grid October here in 2023. Very decentralized. All of the tract industrial housing and subdivisions going up, coming from these mega national builders, highly centralized. When a system is centralized, it's hyper efficient, but it's also fragile. It's not necessarily looking out for your well-being and what you need as an individual. There's no customization because it's mass produced. Almost always, environmental corners are either cut or obliterated. Massive centralized systems do not care about the environment 9 times out of 10. They're built for efficiency and they're built for profit. We have nothing against profit, but we do believe all of our systems should improve the world around us instead of sucking nutrients from the soil and burning it out or making people's homes an investment commodity. So you'll see the systems promoted through the Acorn Land Lab course are almost exclusively decentralized. Now we still have to rely on some centralized systems. There was a factory somewhere that made the home biogas methane digester, and we're thankful for that factory. Our solar panels came from some centralized factory. Also, we're thankful for that factory. The patterns are what are most important. You'll see decentralized concepts repeated again and again and again in our Acorn Land Lab projects. Permaculture, look that term up. We'll talk more about that later. Permaculture is all about decentralization. When you decentralize something, you make people more autonomous, you give them more freedom, you give them more power. So decentralization is something we're super into. I won't continue hammering away on the term. I think y'all get the gist, but we needed to tackle it early on so you can start to mentally categorize centralized system, decentralized system, and almost everything you see here will be decentralized. All right, that's it for now. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next session. Welcome back, section 3, lesson 3. So we're going to be talking about circular systems. What are circular systems? Why do we use circular systems here at the Acorn Land Lab? How are circular systems going to help you build an off-grid environment, an off-grid living system, an off-grid home? And why are circular systems sustainable by nature? So that's what we're diving into. If you've seen our social media videos for Acorn Land Lab, you've probably seen our methane digester or our black soldier fly biopod. You might have seen our organic garden, our rainwater collection system, our backyard free-range chickens. These are all great examples of links in a circular system. A circular system is where a system has an output. That output is then consumed by another system as an input. That system has outputs, which are consumed by other systems as inputs. And then those final inputs are then brought back to the original system. That is a closed loop. That's a circular system. That's the way every function in nature occurs. The rainfall, the clouds rain, the rain hits the surface of the earth, it runs into streams and rivers, it goes out to the ocean, it evaporates, the clouds move inland, the rain falls again. That's a circular system. That's the water cycle. Then we've got the carbon cycle. When a tree is cut down, the carbon is trapped and locked into the wood, like this wooden table. Eventually, this wooden table will be disposed of when it's broken and we're done fixing it up. Hopefully that'll be decades and decades from now. We try to make things last. But when this table has run its useful course, we could use it for firewood, we could let it rot, we could compost it, we could turn it into something different. Eventually, this carbon will be released back into the atmosphere, and some other tree will suck that carbon up and lock it away in a new tree. When this deteriorates and breaks down, when it's either rotten or rotting or burned, that's when the carbon escapes. So carbon cycle, water cycle, those are circular systems. We focus on circular systems here in the Acorn Land Lab because it's the most efficient way of using our resources. So my favorite set of systems to illustrate how circular systems work operate around the methane digester and the chickens. We have chickens in the backyard. We feed those chickens vegetable scraps. So, when I make a tomato sandwich and cut the top and bottom off, when I cut off the peeling on the cucumber, or when I take the beans and snap the edges off, we have vegetable scraps. We don't throw those in the garbage to go to the landfill. There's a lot of value left in those scraps. We take those scraps and we chunk those scraps for the chickens. The chickens eat them. That's part of the chicken's diet, and then they produce more eggs. So we've got more eggs to enjoy from their scraps. Well, the chickens don't just produce eggs. They also produce chicken manure. That chicken manure is in our compost piles. We can also take that chicken manure and put it in our methane digester. The methane digester breaks down manure. It also breaks down food scraps. So if we have food waste, like moldy leftovers, we don't feed moldy produce or moldy leftovers to our chickens. We take that, put it in the methane digester. So chicken manure and food waste can go in the methane digester. Food scraps go to the chickens. We're then given eggs from the chickens. We can cook those eggs on the grill top powered by the methane digester. So chicken manure helps create the methane gas, which is a clean burning fuel to create fried eggs or scrambled eggs on. Well, then if we've got leftover eggs, we could feed those to the pigs and create more manure, which goes into the methane digester. Once we've done that, we've got all that manure and the liquid fertilizer from the methane digester to grow more produce. So the liquid fertilizer from the methane digester helps us grow more produce. So that's a circular system. We go from chicken manure and eggs. We create eggs for ourselves, put the manure in the methane digester. We take the fertilizer from the methane digester, grow more produce. We have more food scraps to feed the chickens or pigs, and the cycle continues. That is a circular system. It's not an entirely closed loop because we do need grain feed for our chickens and pigs, but a lot of what our animals eat is food waste that's from restaurants or from ourselves that would be thrown to a landfill otherwise. So those are some prime examples of what circular systems are. Us capturing rainwater, that's part of the larger circular system for the water cycle. When we are able to take fish living in an IBC tote, cycle the water with their excrement to a bed of vegetables where the vegetables are in a grow medium that has the right types of bacteria to convert the fish's excrement to the right nutrients and nitrates. The plants clean the water, send the water back to the fish tank. It's called aquaponics. I'm sure you've heard of aquaponics. That's another great example of a circular system. It's where the systems are using the inputs from other systems and then giving outputs that can be consumed again. So this is a core concept for everything we do here at the Acorn Land Lab. What are your systems producing? If a system produces a toxic byproduct, it's not a sustainable system. Everything here at the Acorn Land Lab is a system. Our chicken coop is a system. The rainwater collection tanks, that's a system. The greenhouse houses systems. Our solar panels and battery setup, that's a system. And then our tiny home, that's a system. We are systems. We have inputs we need. We need air, food, water, shelter, energy at a physiological level. At another level, we need, love, care, kindness, and those are very important. We're very focused on the physical needs here. We're all systems, and this entire Acorn Land Lab is a system, a more complicated system. Our composting is a system. We take more food waste, grass clippings, we put all that in there with shredded paper, with water. We let the microbes break all the greens and browns down into high quality compost. That then goes into the garden grows more food, creates more weeds, the weeds go back in the compost. That's a circular system. So just like centralized systems and decentralized systems are a pattern to recognize, I'm trying to clearly illustrate how important circular systems are because that's a pattern that we're trying to promote here at the Acorn Land Lab. The opposite of a circular system is a linear system. Here's an example of a linear system. Fertilizers come from overseas to an American farm. The farmer sprays the fertilizers over his monocrop, corn, soybeans. A lot of those fertilizers run off into a local stream. Those fertilizers then flow into a river, flow into the ocean, head to the Gulf of Mexico, create a dead zone. through algae blooms. That is the opposite of a circular system. That's a linear system. We take fertilizer from some distant place, whether it's phosphorus or some other element. We then apply it onto a field. It's grown into corn or soy that we feed to animals to produce cheap meat. And then we consume either the corn or a soy product or the meat. The nitrogen, the phosphorus, whatever fertilizer flows off the top of the soil into the rivers and streams if it's not applied well. And then we've got environmental degradation. That is not a circular system. That is a linear system. Most of the products made today are made to be disposable, which should be a crime. When you create a cheap electronic gadget and then it's used and it's thrown away and it goes to a landfill, that is a linear system. Most negative linear systems today end up in the landfill. Cheap plastic packaging, products that are garbage and no longer work. That is all the product of linear systems. So our goal with the Acorn Land Lab is to take linear systems and bend them into circular systems. In our dream world, you would not throw away any plastic packaging from the store. You'd compost all your packaging if it was a paper product, and then you'd turn it into more soil for growing produce in your backyard. Our mission here at Acorn Land Labs is identifying all of the broken linear systems that we've been leveraging, converting them into circular systems. Growing food on site, harnessing sunlight on site, producing methane fuel, producing compost, being able to compost things we no longer need, that's all circular in nature. Those are circular systems. A bit of a recap on systems. Every system has inputs and outputs. This Acorn Land Lab, key inputs are sunlight, water, soil, manure, compost, human planning and skill, labor, seeds, and materials. Those are the inputs for this overall mega system. The outputs are herbs, greens, vegetables, honey, if we have beehives, eggs, fish, and prawns, if we have aquaponics set up, fertilizer, compost and liquid organic fertilizer, biogas, methane gas, seeds, human well-being through all the exercise, animal feed, mushrooms. Those are the outputs. So if you look at our overall Acorn Land Lab system, our inputs are all these natural elements along with our labor and time. Our outputs are the food, energy, water, shelter, sanitation, the basic things we need. That is the whole system in a nutshell. No pun intended with the Acorn Land Lab bit. Then we can drill down into each individual system like the chicken coop and the chickens and see its own inputs and outputs. The inputs needed for a chicken coop are baby chicks, water, feed. The actual coop is the system. And the outputs are chicken manure, eggs, and we're not raising chickens for meat here, but that could be an output as well, the chicken itself. So I think we've covered this pretty thoroughly. Make a list of example linear systems versus circular systems just to help drive home the distinction. Our Land Lab simulator is built on this entire premise. Every system has inputs and outputs. If we can gauge how many inputs we need to produce X outputs, we can begin to balance the equation of how many systems do we need to live off grid properly. Try to recognize the circular systems around you. Try to recognize the linear systems around you, because linear systems always fail in the end. A linear system cannot go on indefinitely. That's why our society is unsustainable at this moment in time. Things are getting more expensive. Life is getting more difficult because we rely on too many linear systems. When we start to hammer out those linear systems into circular systems, that's when we build sustainability. And not just an abstract form of environmental sustainability, financial sustainability. Our lives can be more affordable. Soil sustainability. When we deplete the soil, eventually we can't grow food from it. Water sustainability. We need to make sure that our water is being managed properly. So we'll dive into more of those details in future videos. But for now, as long as you can understand the difference between a circular system, the systems that the Acorn Land Lab is built upon, versus a linear system, we're good to go to keep moving through the rest of the material. I'll see you in the next lesson. This lesson is called the Acorn Home, the vision of the Acorn Home. So we're trying to tie everything together in one cohesive vision at the beginning of the course to give you an idea of why all these individual systems matter, and when you put all the individual systems together, what they can become. The Acorn Home is our baseline dream. It is a small micro cabin, small micro homestead for 1 to 2 people. It could either be on a 1/4 acre lot that's pretty tiny, like our Acorn Land Lab, or on a 7-acre property, like the Off-Grid October Acorn bungalow that we're building. The Acorn home is a vision more than anything. It's a vision for how our daily life could look like if we radically change what is our normal. The vision that I have wanted to avoid is commuting 1.5 hours to a big city every day for 30 plus years, paying a mortgage on a $300,000 to $400,000 home for 30 plus years, paying massive utility bills, buying industrial food, and being thoroughly bound to systems that I am now aware are extracting as much money and time from people as possible. It's a hard line to walk because I am thankful for many of the systems that many of us enjoy. I'm thankful we have cars to drive. I'm thankful that we have a nice home in the suburbs to live in. I'm thankful for the food systems we have, even if they are hyper-centralized. So I'm not trying to say that all these systems have to burn to the ground. That's not it at all. We are hitting a point, though, in history where these systems, through consolidation, through corporate control, through a profit-seeking directive, through environmental issues, these systems need to change. They have to change. We're not going to change them overnight. That's not going to happen. But we at least need options. It's okay for people to drive cars, but we should at least have some bike paths people can enjoy in this community. Currently, that's not existent. There is no balance whatsoever. That's what I'm trying to illustrate with the Acorn Home vision. We need more options for people that do not want to pursue the normal path that is given to them. Massive student debt, a massive mortgage, living paycheck to paycheck, being in debt for your car and for other consumer goods, that should not be the normal for everybody. Many of us no longer want to accept that as the normal. We're willing to live a more simplistic lifestyle to be able to have more time with friends, with family, time outdoors, commuting, all the expenses commuting to a corporate job. Many of us no longer want that. So the Acorn Home is the vision we have for what normal could look like for our children, for what normal could look like for many of us in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Walk with me on this journey. And this vision has been articulated in one of our Substack articles called The Acorn Home, Off-Grid Freedom. We have that linked in the description for this lesson below the video. So if you have not already, go read that article right now, and then we're going to recap that article in our video. So I will patiently wait while you go read The Acorn Home, Off-Grid Freedom. And if I can't convince you to read it, I'm going to summarize it in the next few minutes. You should know we also did an audio recording of it. So if you'd rather listen to that version, we also have the audio recording on the Substack article. Let's summarize the Acorn vision. The Acorn Home, Off-Grid Freedom. A home should provide the basic things a human needs: creative shelter, clean energy, healthy food, fresh water, and help build healthy soil. Let's renew our vision of a modern home. Here in the American suburbs, a home does one thing. It gives us shelter. And in giving us shelter, that home gives us hot or cool air, it gives us water, it gives us electricity, sometimes gas to power appliances. But that is the one function out of our 5 physiological needs. The home gives us shelter. The home does not give us food, it does not produce its own water, it does not produce its own energy, and it does not handle its own sanitation on site. All of those cost money every month, utilities. Your sanitation, your water, and your electricity. Even the 4 walls around you and the roof above you cost money every month through your mortgage. So we're hitting a point where paying for a cheaply built home in the suburbs is a pretty raw deal. To bind yourself to a mortgage for 30 years, that could be paying for a home that's $250,000, $300,000, $400,000, especially with today's interest rates around 6 to 7%. If you buy a median priced home in the US for around $350,000 or so, with the current prevailing interest rate, you'll spend over $1 million on principal and interest over 30 years. And that is something I, for one, I am point blank not willing to do. That is part of a totally extractive system. You're purchasing a home that will be falling apart in 30 years. It is not energy efficient. It is not built in a walkable environment, very likely. And it's oversized. It's way more home than I need. My family and I used to be quite content in a 1,200 square foot home. That was our first home in this county. Today, it would be illegal to build a 1,200 square foot home because that does not meet the minimum square footage required by the county, which has nothing to do with health and safety, and it has everything to do with higher profits for builders, higher profits for insurance companies, a bigger tax base for the county. There are so many restrictive laws and zoning laws that prevent us from building what we want to build. But before I chase that rabbit too far, let's focus on that Acorn home vision. So a home should do more than just provide shelter. Your home should be a place that you love to be, a place that gives you shelter from the elements and the rain and the cold and the heat. Your home should be a place that produces some of the food you enjoy, in my opinion. And I understand not everyone wants their home to do this, and that's fine. The course probably isn't for you if you don't want your home to be making all these things a reality for you. The Acorn home is not an answer for everybody everywhere. It's a very specific vision for very specific people. So your home, it should grow some of your food. Your home should provide your shelter. Your home should be able to produce some of your energy, whether it's with a methane digester, solar panels, wood stove, rocket mass heater, biochar system. Your home should be able to capture and store some of your water. Maybe not all, but it should at least offset the costs of the water in the garden system. Your home should be able to handle sanitation through composting for food scraps for your garden, or composting for a composting toilet or a toilet with a methane digester to create more nutrients for ornamental trees or berry bushes, blueberries, comfrey for composting. We think a home should handle all of these things. And there's no reason a home can't. The technology is all here. The biggest impediment in urban and suburban zones is zoning. You'll see throughout the course, zoning comes up again and again and again. We 100% need zoning reform. Building codes are here to keep us safe, in theory, and often they do to some extent. So building codes aren't bad, and zoning's not bad. We just need reform for both of them. If I live in the suburbs, I don't want a heavy industrial plant right beside me. That's where zoning is helpful. We don't want heavy industries polluting our neighborhoods. I might not want to live next to a CAFO, concentrated animal feeding operation, with the stench of all those chickens in those terrible conditions. Now that's a whole nother thing. Maybe we shouldn't have a CAFO in the first place. But zoning is useful because we don't want to live next to heavy industry. We don't want pollution right where we live, but often those are symptoms of other problems that need solving. Zoning's not all bad, it's just overly restrictive today. Building codes are not all bad, they're just overly restrictive. There's no reason for us not to legalize a 300 square foot home. It's far more energy efficient. It is just a better option for many of us if we're single or just two of us and we're not home often. Why should we all be paying for 2,000 square foot homes in the suburbs and going broke paying the energy bill, especially when the home is cheaply built? The Acorn home vision is where you're capturing rainwater, you're growing food, you're harnessing solar energy, you are building soil through composting. You are doing this affordably because there's no reason this type of home should cost $300,000. We believe you can build this type of home for $100,000 or less. In many cases, way less. There are people that are putting down $10,000, $20,000 on a piece of land in a low zoning, low building code environment, and then they're bringing in a small home, a wooden shed, a prefab building. They're building their own, 200, 300 square foot structure. Insulate it well, set up the solar panels, set up the gardens, start growing some of your food, start capturing your energy, power a small AC unit, build a big covered porch, have fans powered by solar. Solar has come such a far, far way from the way when it was in the 70s. The prices have come down, the battery capacity has gone up. It is totally possible to cool a small home with a small AC unit off solar and spend just a few $1,000s to do it. The trick is to not be in a place where the zoning prohibits you from doing these things. So researching that is a whole other video we'll cover later in the course. But the Acorn home vision is taking a few $1,000s and buying your piece of property. Owning the land under your feet is critical. Homes themselves don't appreciate in value. It's the land under them. The home structure, the sticks and the bricks, will depreciate. It'll break down. Pipes need to be replaced. Components wear out. It's the land under you. That's the value. So you want to own the land under your off-grid home if at all possible. You spend a few $1,000s down to buy a small rural piece of land. Then, once you've got the land, you start building your tiny house, your cabin, your yurt, and that can be done for a few $1,000s if you find reclaimed materials. If you need a pre-made solution, a little more expensive, but you get your structure going. You install solar panels so that you've got some fans, some electricity, internet connection. Perhaps you do have internet connectivity out there from a hotspot or you need Starlink. You then expand with your biomass heating solution. It could be a rocket mass heater. It could be a small wood stove. And then you're using wood that's fallen or wood you're harvesting on your property or purchasing locally to heat during the cold months. So heating is covered by biomass. Cooling is covered through efficient design, ideally for a passive home or a small AC unit. You begin composting food waste. You begin composting, if you're using a composting toilet, if you're using a methane digester, you're producing cooking fuel. Install a solar oven, and then you're cooking food using nothing but sunlight. You're not paying for that recurring fuel source. These elements all weave together to where you can spend tens of thousands of dollars for a wonderful small home for 1 to 2 people, rather than hundreds of thousands of dollars for a home that will fall apart in a few decades, that will cost a fortune to heat and cool, a home that is probably not in a walkable area, and a home where you're attached to a massive mortgage and you're on the hook for it. The WEF has written some interesting articles saying that young people don't want to own things, they'd rather rent. I have not found that to be true. Most people I know do want to own their own home. They like to own their own car. They want to own and take care of their own possessions, but they don't want to become a wage slave to do it. So the Acorn home vision is one where maybe you don't grow 100% of your food. That's not practical, but you're growing 30%. You're collecting 100% of your solar energy for electricity. You're producing 100% of your sanitation needs. You're able to collect the majority of your water and then purify it on site for yourself, your livestock, your garden. And the real dream is to eventually have transportation options, whether it's a micro EV or pedal power or just very, very efficient, gas-powered vehicles that are smaller to where you can produce more of your energy on site for transportation as well. That's a stretch and we're not there yet. We're following some projects like the Squad solar car or the Aptera solar powered car that have a lot of promise where you could power them from your solar setup. But those products are not out yet. So the Acorn home vision is one where rather than pay a mortgage for 30 years, pay off your home in 10 and then expand it when you need to expand it. Build more gardens when you need more gardens. Install more solar panels when you need them. Work a part-time job remotely to pay the property taxes. Have a canvas Airbnb tent to help pay the property taxes or offset your income needs. If you're producing all your utilities on site, if your home is just a few $100s a month in terms of a tiny home, mortgage payment or financing, and then eventually pay it off, you don't need some giant job in the city. Your time becomes your own once again. You're able to grow more food, help with more local projects, build more Airbnbs to rent for eco Airbnb trips to show other people what this lifestyle looks like. It's hard for me to even wrap my brain around this because I was raised in an era where you go to work for 40 plus hours a week, you pay the mortgage, you pay the utility bills, you go to the grocery store for your food, but we're seeing more and more and more people living in a different way. You would like to join those people, just judging by you being here in this course. I think I've outlined it pretty well. The Substack article, The Acorn Home Off-Grid Freedom, does a pretty good job illustrating all the nitty-gritty details. There's no reason we can't live like this. We're already running all of these systems here. Last year, we grew over 1,000 pounds of produce in the Acorn Land Lab garden. This year, we're on track for well over 2,000 pounds. We've been raising livestock locally. We've been processing, eggs and honey locally, growing mushrooms. All these processes provide for our needs. So if wages are stagnating, If the traditional housing market is so obscenely overpriced, why are we still participating in these systems? It's time to save up, opt out, and build our own systems, rebuild community, so we can make the Acorn Home vision a reality. It's what our team is doing, and we're excited to help you do the same. It is time for me to have a little bit more coffee. I need some more pep in my step. Thank y'all for tuning in for the Acorn Home Off-Grid vision. We want to hear from you. Is this the vision you're picturing? This is the project we're building this year. We're finishing it on the Acorn Land Lab. We're building the 7-acre zone with the micro cabin, and we'll have our team members living it out, giving you feedback. What is it like? What is it like to live with less energy? What is it like to live with more local food? What is it like to live with more freedom? Thank y'all for tuning in. We're excited to keep moving on the course and keep this rolling with you all. Thanks for your support.